when you go to college, you go to university and then you determine your major. Was there even ever a time in your life where you're like, maybe I'm gonna get a marketing degree? Accounting could be nice for me, or was it
I mean,
always like
definitely
I
not
do what I
accounting.
love? You're definitely not accounting. Okay.
No, no, no. Yeah, actually, I originally applied to school to be a director, like a film director. Like
Okay.
that's
Oh,
the direction
oh,
I initially was going to go down.
this will
Uh,
go nicely. Yeah, keep
Yeah.
going.
yeah. I initially, I mean, way back to that sixth grade time when I was interested in food, we had a really great film program at my middle school, my high school. So I was taking film and wanted to be a director from sixth grade. So like, what is that, 11 years old. So I had about 7 years worth of like creating films, working on Final Cut Pro. So I thought like that's what I wanted to do. So initially, when I first started to go into college, it was for film. But then I very, very quickly, like as soon as I got there, decided like, I don't know about this film thing. How about like a science backing? And I don't even think I knew what I specifically wanted to do. Initially, I was like, okay, a medical doctor or a naturopath, or like there's a lot of different ways I was deciding on where my biology degree could take me. And it wasn't until I transferred to University of Arizona where I finally like had the time to sit down and be like, so what is it that actually makes me happy? What is it that I focus on? And my mind always just kept coming back to how food affects the body. And even though something like a naturopath was alluring to me because it was more generalized on how you can help people, all the ways that I felt like I could help people was through food. So I was like, why should I do something more general and I can be really great at something really specific?
Yeah. So I'll take it even back to just high school. Were you like, was that kind of your, I mean, just based off of kind of, I think our minds think the same way as far as like research and well, you learn a little bit different than I do. I'll say I'm a visual learner, but I mean, were you
I would
taking, I mean,
actually say I'm
obviously
a
you're taking,
visual learner as well.
yeah, well, you got both. So apparently that works well. I don't have that, but so did you, like in high school, were you drawn towards like the biology, the chemistry, anatomy? Like, was that
No,
always
no, not at all. Like
not at all?
I was
So you're doing
really,
sports, you're doing nutrition. So like, what did you like in well, it's hard to say what you liked in high school, but it's what were you drawn to
yeah,
like like coursework wise in high school?
I really, I mean, it's so all over the place. My favorite class was history, actually.
Oh,
I
really? Okay.
loved history, and yeah, and I think it's also seeing how things happen, like why
Right.
we got to where we are. Like it's kind of the same concept. And there's actually a lot of
It
history
is.
to nutrition that people need to learn. And I eventually want to do a YouTube series on this. But yeah, I wasn't interested in science at all. I was naturally pretty good at math. Like I didn't have to try too hard at math, but when it came to biology, I mean, I took what basic bio freshman year of high
Yeah,
school. I
like
had
your
zero
standard
interest in it.
courses.
Yeah, and maybe it's just the teachers, like they weren't very inspiring, but I think I got like a C plus in that class, which
Yeah.
is, not great. And it wasn't until later on that I did, like when I actually got into college, that those
Okay.
classes, those biology classes, I was like, oh, this is actually really interesting how this all works. And then I started getting good grades.
Yeah, see that then that's what I was curious about because like that's kind of where I excelled like was in high school is like these whether it's like biology or like the AP Chem classes and like anatomy and I was very good at that and then I was like oh I'm gonna go do chemistry and then I got into college and I was like never mind I'm not good at like a lot of this testing part of chemistry very good at the practical part but not good at
Right.
that so I was curious if you had any like formulation from there but it seems like you were focused on
No. Yeah,
cooking
I was
weird recipes and spending your time at grocery stores analyzing ingredients
yeah,
and
yeah.
then
So it
and
was it
then
was somewhat scientific. I just didn't realize
yeah, well, also
it.
like it's funny the way I mean, even you said you liked history. There's a concept that's applied that's very you can almost paint not with a too broad of a brush, but you can kind of paint a broad brush as far as like history. It's like you need to go all the way back and you need to understand everything so you can get to where you
Yeah.
are today. It's funny that you get to that point. So you go to University of Arizona, correct? And then
Mhm.
that's where you start. Did you go there because of that coursework? Why'd you go to Arizona? Like
I
because
wish I could
it's
say it was for that reason, but it was actually for my fiance. So he was at school at U of A, and I was at Santa Barbara, and which is where we live now. But I was planning on transferring over to UCSB to go to the university here. And he was like, "Hey, well, we're dating, so you should probably come over here." So it actually worked out amazingly. It couldn't have worked out better because they don't have a nutrition program at UCSB, but they did at University of Arizona. And in fact, they have this amazing study abroad program where I was able to go study abroad in Italy, studying the Mediterranean diet for nutrition. So it all worked out. It just wasn't on purpose.
That's a pretty interesting. So I think this kind of goes into one thing that you do well on your channel too, is like diet is kind of this marketing word that's been created, as fads, where so many things change, but they're truly the same kind of thing, right? Like there's so many diets that just get rebranded and over. But
Yeah.
one of those that's not been rebranded a million times is the Mediterranean diet, because it literally is a cultural diet. It's not a diet. It really is like a cultural thing. So what did you learn from that?
From studying abroad
Yeah.
for the Mediterranean program?
Yeah.
You learn how bad nutrition science is, because you assume that like this idea of the Mediterranean diet being so perfect, so healthy, there's actually not very much research behind that, but it keeps on getting repeated over and over and over again. That Mediterranean diet ranks again in the top 10 for the US diet and health, whatever. Like there really isn't much research behind it. And the research that is behind it is all epidemiological. And when you actually learn, like this is something that I've been really trying to help my audience understand, is that when it comes to how great a study is going to be, epidemiological is one of the worst levels of studies there is, just because it by definition can't tell you cause and effect. So if you do any study with an epidemiological study, which just means that you're studying a population, so you're just looking at a population, seeing if you can find trends, and that's pretty much all an epidemiological study is. You can't.
Would you say that's very subjective? I mean, it's kind of subjective, yeah.
It is to an extent, because you're looking at how it is that you can connect the dots. Like you're putting in your own bias there by just trying to see how you can connect the dots. It's still studies, like you can't manipulate the data so much where it's totally subjective, but there is going to be bias from that sense. With any other type of research, like if you think of studies for like a medicine, like if someone's taking a medication that's been passed through your bigger studies, you have a placebo group and then you have the test group. And so the test group, the only thing different about them is that they have this medication. You can't do that with nutrition. You can't change one thing when it comes to nutrition. And when you actually start to understand how the implications of that, you can see just how poor a lot of the studies are. And so when you see like, oh, new study says intermittent fasting will kill you, or new study says like a tomato is going to make you get autoimmune disease, like it's easy to get wrapped up in that. But if you have a basic understanding of how they're actually trying to exploit these studies for a headline,
right,
it's crazy.
They just want eyeballs, and they're going to do whatever it takes to get eyeballs, even if it, half the time, and then half the people just read the title of the article and not really dive into it. We're like, actually, just kidding. This is just what people think. And you go, I mean, it happens all the time. Yeah, it's the cash grab of title, or it's the cash grab of eyeballs, essentially.
Which I totally understand that, because YouTube, you have to have something that's like attention grabbing.
You wouldn't do that, would you? You would not do
definitely.
that.
It's a very hard ethical line though that you have to follow, because you'll see these other YouTubers who are getting so many views and they have these crazy types of titles that they're using. But you want to keep your morality as well.
Yeah.
Well, I want to pull back to one thing that I like about the Mediterranean diet, which I think you've kind of debunked in a way. It's like, but what I do like is when you go to those small European communities and small European towns, even the big grocery stores are locally farmed. So you're getting true produce. It's not like, one thing that I have a problem with in the States is we're getting avocados from Mexico, which is not bad.
Yeah.
But they're sitting on a truck for 16 days. They're going somewhere else. They're going to a facility. And so is the nutrition really there that you're getting? Is the lettuce that's been shipped 16 hours to you, sits on a shelf for 17 days before you eat it, are you really getting that? Where the one thing that's really great about those small communities is you're getting tomatoes that were picked 4 days ago. They weren't sprayed with an agent after they went. And that's something that I love.
There's definitely some truth to that. Although I think what actually makes the Mediterranean diet a little bit, what actually does make it great is it's how it views food. So how it treats food as, a meal that you sit and you enjoy, that you don't eat while you're on the road, that, there is a lot of a lot of intentionality that they have around their foods and keeping it more cultural. And when you keep something more cultural to how that food was always produced, there's reasons why throughout history, cultural traditions have developed in certain patterns as well. Like, for example, with the Italians, they traditionally will parboil their tomatoes so it takes off that outer layer, and then they'll also take out the seeds. Like, that was something that when I was studying abroad, that we had our little Italian grandma who was teaching us how to cook these foods. She would show us to do, and we'd be like, well, why? And she's like, that's just how we always do it. But then you learn from different types of doctors, like, oh, the strongest amount or the most amount of lectins that are in a tomato that could cause an autoimmune issue for someone is in the seeds and in the skin. So it's like science is kind of uncovering what a lot of these cultures have been doing for a long time.
And that was just natural evolution. They just saw people who ate the whole tomato or something. They just saw that was negative for them. So, oh, maybe if I take the skin off, maybe I take the seeds. All these things just happened over generations.
And then you lose that. They lose that story and they say, hey, that's how it's done. We don't know why, but then you can break it down. This is, I knew the history nerd in you was going to come out. And this is exactly it. This is where it comes out, because it's like there's always a reason behind something if you go a little bit further back. I mean, food especially. It's like, imagine being the first guy that was eating potatoes when they were raw. You know what I mean? That guy, I think he died. I think that guy died.
He did not have a good day.
So there's a lot of history that goes behind it. What, do you have any other fun like history, like food history facts? They come up
as I talk. They come up, but I can't just like spout them out. Remember, my memory isn't crazy. It's just they get triggered every now and then.
Yeah, good. Well, we'll test you. We'll test you later.
Okay.